So my name again is Carlos Vicens. I'm the CFO of Neo Lithium, and I'm here to present the newest development story in the Lithium Triangle. We have an asset in Catamarca in Argentina, and we believe we have five strong pillars here. The right asset and structure, meaning that we're in the right place. We own 100% of the asset. It's big. And we have cash in the bank. We have about 51 million Canadian in the bank. We have one of the best institutional ownerships in the lithium space, as well as just a regular junior mining space. The resource is very unique. We calculated our resource last year in late spring. Very high grade, highest grade in Argentina, but more importantly, it has the lowest combined impurity of any known salar. The two critical impurities here that we're talking about are sulfate and magnesium. We have the lowest of any known salar in the world. Very large resource, about 3.5 million tons of lithium. Based on that resource, we have very positive PEA, which has a very good NPV of 1.2, very high IRR, almost 30%, and that's all based on a 35,000 ton production facility. Now, one of the most important parts about here is that it's all simple, proven technology, and there's nothing new here. This is all evaporation, solar, cheap. Our cost based on very low impurities is about $2,800 per ton. Current price today of lithium is rough $14,000, $15,000. Even though you may have a resource and you may put PEA on paper, you need to make sure that you can process this. We've already made quite a bit of progress on the processing side. Processing is where the rubber hits the road. We've already have 3.8% clean concentrate that we can essentially put into a pilot plant that we're currently building in Chile. We'll have that producing by the end of the summer in Chile. Then we'll dismantle and ship it to Argentina and produce pilot scale lithium carbonate in Argentina this year, and that's the intent. When I talk about the right people, it's not only people inside, which we do. We have Waldo Perez, our CEO, who is the founder and CEO of Lithium America. So Lithium America is a company that will shortly be in construction, also in Argentina. But we also have 10 to 12 chemical engineers and processing specialists within the company. So we're by far one of the most lithium savvy developers in the sector. We also have very good relations with the government. We already signed a 30-year tax stability with the government of Argentina, so royalties will not change for us. And we also signed an MOU with the city of Fiambalá to build a processing plant in the city. This is our capital structure. Right now, we're about a $175 million market cap company. We have 3 research coverage groups that covered us. And we have one of the best institutional shareholders ownerships out there. We have the likes of BlackRock, M&G, JP Morgan, and in Canada we have RBIM, Connor Clark and Lund, Manulife, and so forth. So you get a sense to see how the registry is very important for us going long term. This is where we're located. That red square that you see there is where we're located. We're at the bottom end of the Lithium Triangle. We're very close to the border with Chile. And very close to a port in Chile called Puerto Caldera. There's no inhabitants or Aboriginal communities in the area. Very clean, so for construction purposes, that's what you're looking for. This is a view from the top. You can see that black spot on the very top and another black spot kind of in the middle and then another one in the low. Those are 3 lithium brine lakes. So if you would be trying to find oil, those are 3 lakes of oil. But in this case are lithium brine. That's the resource that we're trying to find, or the majority of developers are trying to find at depths in the porous spaces of the sediments. Well, we have 3 lakes of it. These lakes are not very deep, they're only 2 meters deep, but that tells us that there's a lot more to be found at depths, and which is what we did, and we found 3.5 million tons of it at depths within that white spot of the salar. The salar is essentially a big salt crust sediments that are very porous, and that's where you find the brine. So the lakes exist because we have geothermal springs feeding it. About 2,000 or more than 2,000, about 2,200 liters per second are coming in. And those are those yellow stars that you see surrounding. So that's how these lakes exist, and that's how the lithium gets essentially input into the system or salar. That's a lake. That's a picture of the lake on the top, a picture of the salar at the bottom. This is a picture of one of the geothermal springs. You can see the cars there and some people. This one specifically brings in about 500 liters per second of high-grade lithium into the lake, which then evaporates, concentrates, and feeds the rest of the salar. A picture of the resource. I'm not going to go too much in detail on this, but you get a sense that on the northern part is where the high grade is. We got 2 cutoffs here, but just suffice to say that our cutoffs are very high. In fact, some of the cutoffs here are above the average grade of many of the lithium developers or juniors in the space. One thing to note here is that 90% of our resource is 100 meters and above, so it's a very shallow resource that once we calculated. So there's a lot of room for growth at the bottom. In fact, we already drilled, and the second season of drilling is right now. We already drilled to 400 or 500 meters, and you can see that blue line at the bottom. That's where the new aquifer was found. And we've already, that aquifer is about between, depending on where you are, between 60 and 150 meters deep. Remember, the top is only 100 meters. The one is deeper, higher grade, same impurity level. So expect a new resource calculation at the end of July with significant upside on that resource. This is basically a picture of our brine coming up from 600 meters from that aquifer. Very porous, and the flow rate is unbelievable. Oops, that should have been a video, but. Our PEA is based on ponds at site. We'll ship that pond, we'll ship the concentrate, a 6% concentrate down to the town of Fiambala, and then we'll build the processing plant, the town of Fiambala, 150 kilometers away. We only need about 8 trucks a day to ship that brine because of a high concentrate. I already talked to you about some of the results of the PA. This is just additional slide here. A couple things to mention is that we've used a very conservative price of 11,760. Today's price is 14 to 15,000. We'll be generating about 300 million EBITDA based on that, and we'll be paying this back in less than 2 years. On the cost curve wise, we're at that red line if we'll be producing today. So we'll be at the very low end of the cost curve. One thing to note here is that both SQM and Albemarle total cash cost, including royalties, is above anywhere between $4,000 and $4,500 a ton. Like I mentioned before, we already signed a tax stability agreement, and our royalty is 3%. This is a very important slide, and this is where our cash cost comes into question. So these are the 2 critical impurities that I mentioned, magnesium and sulfate. You want to be closer to 0,0, theoretically. The closer you are, the easier it is to process, and the more efficient it is to process, and the less costly it is to process. We are that big red dot there. We are the closest to 0,0, and that's why we believe we have a very unique. These are all, in fact, all the little blue dots are all the other development and producing projects in the region, to get a sense of where we are in comparison to the others. Infrastructure. Our camp holds about 100 people. We built that full chemical lab within that camp. The road from the highway looks just like that. You can see it's bare land, no flora, no fauna, which is exactly where you want to be building a mine. And those are some of the ponds that we built. We've already built an additional 2 ponds of 1.1 hectare each on top of the solar. And this is how it looks. You see those 2 ones there. And then we'll be interconnected with the other concentration ponds that are currently in operation and concentrating. You see the camp and the whole layout. This is where the lithium process progress is currently focused on. It was essentially trying to work on how we're going to get that clean 3.8% lithium brine. That is exactly what we're now getting from our ponds. And we've been able to save a lot of reagent costs, so meaning that that $2,800 per ton cost will go down once we have our final feasibility, and we're working very hard for that. But this is where the rubber hits the road, and we've made very good progress here. In fact, that brine right there can go into any pilot plant and produce lithium carbonate, which is what we're doing now. We're waiting for our pilot plant to get built and shipped to Argentina to produce. Well, first we'll produce in Chile, and then we'll produce it in Argentina once it gets shipped. Comparison-wise, we're the 4th highest grade in the world in terms of lithium. We're the 8th largest in terms of resource size. Well, that will grow when we put out our new resource calculation in July. We'll pass this. It's just our view of valuation. We'll always say we're cheaper than, and you should buy our stock, which you should, but that's another question. And this is what we want to plan to do before I finish 10 seconds here. We'll have a new resource calculation at the end of July. We'll have a pilot plant in operation by the end of the year. We'll have permits by the end of the year, and we'll have a feasibility by Q1 2019. Thank you very much for your time.